A few years ago, I had this moment, one of those gut punch realizations that you can't unsee. I was sitting across from someone who had just said something that made me feel small. You know that feeling, that quiet sting, that little tightening in your chest? I laughed it off like I always did. But as I drove home, this question hit me so hard I had to pull over. Why do I keep letting this happen? And then came the second, even harder truth. Because I taught them that they could. See, here's what we don't always realize. People don't just decide how to treat us, we teach them. Every time we stay silent when we should speak up, every time we minimize our own needs, every time we tolerate disrespect in the name of being easygoing or nice, we're setting the standard. And what I've learned, sometimes the hard way, is that if you don't set the standard for how you want to be treated, the world will do it for you. So let's talk about that today. Let's talk about the quiet, powerful work of teaching people how to treat us. Not through anger, not through ultimatums, but through clarity, courage, and the belief that we are worthy of respect. Because we are. First, get clear on what you're available for. People can't respect your boundaries if you don't even know them. Are you available for last-minute requests at work? Constant venting from friends without reciprocity? Sarcasm disguised as just joking? Clarity is kindness to yourself and to others. And here's where it gets tricky. Most of us assume we have clear boundaries. But the real test, when someone crosses the line, do you address it or do you let it slide? Because if we let it slide, it wasn't really a boundary. It was just a preference we weren't willing to protect. I used to think I was great at boundaries. I could give a whole TED Talk on the importance of self-respect. And then one day, a friend called me late at night, again with the same crisis we'd talked about a dozen times before. And I answered, again. I listened, reassured, gave advice, knowing full well that none of it would be taken. When we hung up, I sat there, exhausted, resentful, frustrated. And I had to ask myself, why am I upset with them for crossing a boundary I never actually set? That was an uncomfortable realization. But here's what I learned. Boundaries are not about controlling other people's behavior. They're about controlling our own availability. If I keep answering that late night call, I'm not holding a boundary. I'm just wishing for one. So what are you available for? And just as important, what are you not available for? One of the most life-changing shifts I made was getting really specific. I'm available for meaningful, reciprocal friendships where we both show up for each other. I'm not available for relationships where I'm constantly chasing someone's attention. I'm available for honest, direct communication even when it's hard. I'm not available for passive-aggressive comments disguised as humor. I'm available for hard work and deep commitment. I'm not available for burnout disguised as hustle culture. And once I got clear on that, something incredible happened. My life became a lot simpler. The people who respected my boundaries stayed, and the ones who didn't naturally fell away. No big fights, no dramatic speeches, just a quiet shift in how I showed up. Because here's the thing, when you are clear about what you will and won't accept, you don't have to beg for respect. The right people will adjust, and the wrong ones will remove themselves. Either way, you win. Second, watch your own behavior. Here's an uncomfortable truth. Sometimes we reinforce bad treatment by doing it to ourselves. Apologizing when we're not at fault, laughing off disrespect, shrinking to make others comfortable. The way we treat ourselves sets the bar for everyone else. I learned this the hard way. I used to say sorry like it was punctuation. Someone would bump into me. Oh, sorry. A coworker would talk over me in a meeting. Oh, no worries. A friend would cancel last minute for the third time in a row. It's totally fine. Except it wasn't fine. It was exhausting. I was exhausted. And one day, someone close to me, someone who loved me said, you don't have to apologize for existing. That one hit deep. Because they were right. Somewhere along the way, I had learned that making myself smaller, easier, quieter was the price of being liked. And the real problem, it wasn't just that other people were treating me that way. I was showing them that I was okay with it. So I started paying attention. And let me tell you, it was uncomfortable at first. I realized how often I dismissed my own feelings before anyone else even had the chance. I'd say it's no big deal when it actually was a big deal. I'd say I totally understand when I really didn't. And I'd say it's fine when, if I was being honest, it wasn't fine at all. And here's what I learned. You cannot expect other people to respect you more than you respect yourself. That's not how this works. If I don't take my own needs seriously, why would anyone else? If I don't value my own time, why would anyone else? So I started making small changes. Instead of automatically saying sorry, I started saying thank you. Thank you for your patience instead of sorry for the delay. Thank you for listening instead of sorry for talking too much. I stopped laughing at jokes that weren't funny. Stopped downplaying my own accomplishments. Stopped saying it's fine when it wasn't. And do you know what happened? The people in my life started treating me differently. Not because I demanded it, not because I lectured them, but because I stopped showing them that I was okay with less. And the people who really cared, they noticed. They adjusted. They respected the new standard. Not because I forced them to, but because I finally respected it myself. Because at the end of the day, people will take their cues from you. If you treat yourself like you matter, they'll follow your lead. Third, communicate with courage. Boundary setting isn't about pushing people away. It's about teaching them how to be in relationship with you. That means saying, I don't accept being spoken to that way, or I value our friendship, but I need more balance. You don't have to explain or over-justify. Just say it and let it stand. I used to think that if people really cared about me, they would just know what I needed. That if they truly respected me, they wouldn't cross certain lines. But the truth? Most people aren't mind readers. And if I wasn't willing to speak up, I had no right to be surprised when people continued to treat me the way I had allowed. But let's be real. Saying what you need out loud is hard. It feels risky. What if they get defensive? What if they think I'm overreacting? What if they leave? Those are the fears that keep us quiet, that make us swallow our frustration, smile when we don't mean it, and stay in dynamics that chip away at our peace. I remember the first time I set a real boundary in a relationship. I had a friend who only reached out when she needed something. Advice, support, validation. And for years, I gave it freely until one day I realized our entire friendship was built on her needs, not mine. So I decided to do something different. The next time she called mid-crisis, I listened. But instead of jumping into fixer mode, I simply said, I care about you and I want to support you, but I also need our friendship to feel mutual. Lately, it hasn't. Silence, a long, heavy pause. My heart was pounding. And then she said, wow, I didn't even realize. I'm sorry. That was it. No fight, no drama, just clarity. And that's the thing about boundaries. They don't have to come with an explosion. They just need to be clear, consistent, and said out loud. A lot of us struggle with this because we think boundary setting means we have to be harsh or unkind. But boundaries are actually the opposite. They allow relationships to be healthier, not resentful. Because let's be honest, unspoken resentment poisons relationships faster than any difficult conversation ever could. And yes, some people will push back. Not because they're terrible, but because they've benefited from the version of you that never said no. And that's okay. Your job isn't to control how people respond. It's to be honest about what you need. So say it clearly, kindly, without apology. And then let it stand. Because the people who are meant to be in your life, they'll listen, they'll adjust. And the ones who can't, well, that's good information to have. Fourth, watch how people respond. Some will respect your boundaries immediately. Those are your people. Others will test them. And a few, they'll walk away. That's not a loss. That's clarity. The right relationships will rise to meet the standard you set. The first time I really started setting boundaries, I was terrified. I had spent years over-explaining, over-giving, and overextending myself in relationships. And when I finally stopped, when I started saying no, when I stopped bending over backward to make other people comfortable at my own expense, something interesting happened. Some people immediately adjusted. They respected the boundary without question. They didn't make me feel guilty. They didn't push back. And do you know what I realized? Those were the people who truly valued me, not just what I could do for them. But then there were others, the ones who tested it. The ones who got quiet, who sent a passive-aggressive, "you've changed" text, who tried to make me feel guilty for having needs. And that was hard. It made me question myself. Am I being selfish? Am I overreacting? Am I too much? And then there were the ones who walked away, the ones who disappeared when I stopped overgiving. And that stung. But here's the truth. If someone only wants to be in your life when they can take advantage of your lack of boundaries, then they were never really in your life to begin with. They were just using it. This is where it gets really uncomfortable because this part isn't about other people. It's about us. It's about what we're willing to tolerate, what we're willing to excuse. Because I can't tell you how many times I've heard someone say, "But they didn't mean it that way. That's just how they are. They do so much for me in other ways." And listen, I get it. It is so much easier to explain away bad behavior than it is to face the fact that someone we love might not actually respect us. But here's what I know. When someone truly values you, when they genuinely care about who you are, not just what you offer, they will listen when you set a boundary. Not everyone will like it, but the people who belong in your life will respect it. And the ones who don't, well, that's not rejection, that's redirection. That's life-clearing space for relationships that are built on real respect, not just convenience. So pay attention, not to what people say, but to what they do when you stop making yourself small, because the right relationships won't require you to shrink to fit inside them. Fifth, remind yourself, you are worthy of respect just as you are, not when you're more successful, not if you're more accommodating, not after you've earned it, right now. In this moment. The way people treat you is a reflection of what they believe about you, but more importantly, it's a reflection of what you believe about yourself. And that part, that's the hardest. Because it's one thing to set a boundary, to say the words, to walk away from relationships that don't honor you, but believing, truly believing that you deserve respect, that you are worthy of kindness, that your needs matter, that takes real, deep internal work. I used to think that if I was just better, nicer, more patient, more understanding, then people would treat me with the respect I wanted. If I could just prove my worth, if I could just be enough, then surely they'd see it too. But that's not how this works. You don't become worthy by earning it. You don't get more valuable by giving more of yourself away. And the hardest lesson I ever learned was this. If you wait for other people to give you permission to believe you're enough, you'll be waiting forever. The truth is, most of us were never taught how to believe in our own worth. Maybe we grew up in environments where love felt conditional, where we had to be easy or quiet or high achieving to get approval. Maybe we had relationships where we were only valued for what we did, not for who we were. And so we internalized this idea that respect, kindness, love, those were things we had to earn, things we had to deserve. But here's what I know now. The moment you decide that you are worthy of respect, not because of what you do, but because of who you are, that's the moment your whole life starts to change. Because when you believe in your own worth, you stop chasing people who don't see it. You stop explaining yourself to people who are committed to misunderstanding you. You stop settling for relationships that require you to be less of yourself to be accepted. And listen, I'm not saying this is easy. It's uncomfortable. It takes practice. It takes daily reminders, sometimes hourly ones. It takes unlearning years of conditioning that told you that being liked was more important than being respected, but it's worth it. Because the way you allow people to treat you isn't just about them, it's about you. It's about what you're willing to accept, what you're willing to believe about yourself. And when you finally decide that you deserve respect just as you are without conditions, that's when everything shifts. Because the truth is, you don't have to prove your worth to anyone. You just have to start acting like you already know it. So here's the truth. People will treat you how you let them, not because they're cruel, not because they're out to hurt you, but because we all take cues from each other. We teach people what's okay, what's not, what we'll tolerate, and what we won't. And the good news, you get to set the standard. When you get clear on what you're available for, when you respect yourself first, when you communicate with courage, when you pay attention to how people respond, and when you finally believe deep down that you are worthy of respect, everything changes. Not just how people treat you, but how you move through the world. And I won't lie, this work isn't easy. It takes practice. It takes unlearning. It takes sitting in discomfort and resisting the urge to shrink back into old habits. But I can tell you this, it's worth it. Because you deserve relationships built on mutual respect. You deserve spaces where you don't have to prove your worth. You deserve a life where you are treated with kindness, not because you fought for it, but because you expected it. And if you take nothing else from this, take this. You don't have to demand respect. You just have to stop accepting anything less. Good luck, and remember, you are worthy. Always.